that doesn't mean you're going to record.
Does that really not? If you hit the green button, does it just not record?
It's play.
Oh, so dumb.
And I'm staring like, which button do I hit?
Well, that is very counterintuitive.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, green means go, red means
This
stop.
ain't an old school VCR.
Yeah.
Hello, Free Rotation Nation.
Nation.
Welcome to part 4 of our MKUltra series.
MKUltra.
I am Baby the Hair.
The
I am
Hair.
joined by...
And it looks great today.
Thank
by the way.
you. Thank you.
It's got a nice swoop.
Took me like 4 times to get it right today. It's the fucking humidity. Even slight fucks it up. But I am joined today by Mr. Topher.
Hello.
Sorry. Our legal advisor, Beckles.
It's so nice outside. I'm so happy. My
it.
basic white girl's coming out so hard.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Is that pumpkin spice I smell?
It
That
is.
is pumpkin
Jesus
spice.
Christ.
Pumpkin spice cold brew.
Hot take, pumpkin spice is garbage, apple cider is better.
Yes.
Your opinion is your opinion, and I don't argue with it.
That's no fun.
Yeah.
And then...
Way to
Do
ruin
it 5 days a week. Might as well take a break on the weekends.
Then our head honcho, a.k.a. director, a.k.a. president,
Of nothing.
Angela.
El Presidente.
Yeah,
She's like
yes.
our CEO of our podcast,
Of nothing.
but really all she has is a computer and a dream.
And a cat. I have a cat.
So, Chris, what do you have for us today?
Okay, so we are going to get into the Charles Manson aspect of MKUltra and how he was related to all this also crazy bullshit. We did Jack Ruby last week, which was 63 to 65. We are now moving on to 67, 68, 1967, 68, 69. And we're getting into Charles Manson and what happened there with the Tate-LaBianca murders and how crazy it all was.
Now, if you live in a bubble, nobody knows, and you don't know who Charles Manson is, you've got a problem.
Well, and not only that, but the story you know about Helter Skelter, you need to just take that, set it aside.
Yeah,
It's garbage.
Yeah, the book that was written by Vincent Bugliosi.
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 He was the actual prosecutor for the Manson, and
Pretty much a criminal.
well, he's 100% a criminal,
Yeah.
and 95% of that book is just
Bullshit.
lies. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
So-
the case, the whole thing was just made up.
So you think you're coming into this knowing about Charles Manson? If that's your take on it, is that story you know? We need you to wipe that.
I will be here as your basic Charles Manson bitch because that's
Mansion?
Charles Manson bitch. I really can't speak today. Oh
Him got
my
a big
God.
house.
He was in a big house for a minute.
True.
He's still in he's now not in
No,
the big
he
house.
died 2
but
years
he
ago.
died. But he was in the big house for a while.
Interestingly enough, every time to like getting an answer from him, like a legit answer, boom, solitary confinement.
Yeah,
Like, okay. With his bodyguard on the phone. What was his name? Pincushion?
yeah, pins. But yeah, Tom O'Neill he's the guy that exposed most. He tracked all this down. He spent 20 years researching all of this, specifically on Manson. Like, he went really far back and tracked down everybody that was alive and everyone that would talk to him and looked up every record. And he tracked down people that should have been involved in the Manson case and weren't. He tracked down people that were in the Manson case and flat out lied on stage, and he's proved they lied. And it's just like, this is really crazy that they just let this happen.
And to put Tom O'Neill in perspective, he was a fluff piece reporter. He was commissioned by Premiere Magazine. They've been defunct for 30 years.
Yeah.
But he was commissioned to do an anniversary piece on the murders. So,
Yeah, he was doing the 30-year anniversary in 99. That was his job. Write us a magazine article about Manson.
yeah. So, as he was just doing the interview with Bugliosi, there was something said, a loose thread, that when he pulled it, he's like, oh, this is a story. This man went broke, like lost credibility.
He got sued by his publisher because he was supposed to write a magazine piece. He then told them he was going to write a book. The due date of the book was, I think it was 2001. He finished it in like 2017. They sued him for they paid him in advance. They sued him and got that back. There was a lot of hardship he went through. I mean, he went completely broke chasing this story.
Right, sleeping on friends' couches.
Yeah.
Like Uber, he had to start teaching English as a second language just to survive. And people are like, "Oh, he waited until Bugliosi died to publish it because it didn't paint his." No, he said, "I'm not going to publish anything I couldn't track a document to and tie it."
And on top of it, you're also looking at 30 years past in a story that is very well known. It's harder for you to get the truth out of.
Yeah, to go 30 years ago.
Yes.
Right. And
Especially when he gets to the Jolly West strings.
Well, and not even that. It's also, this is the standard storyline that has been presented to the public. This is how everybody knows the story.
Yeah.
Helter Skelter, race wars, stuff like that.
And
so,
people still didn't really want to talk about it.
right.
Yeah, I mean, it was
Like the real story.
Well, I think it was just such a shock to our culture that it really wasn't into the Summer of Love and the hippie movement. This is how it ended.
Yeah.
This was the final blow, which, funnily enough, was actually the whole point. That was the whole stated goal of Operation Chaos, which was a CIA operation to stop the hippies, to make counterculture look like it's dangerous in American lives.
But
And
let's run it back to
this did it. Yep.
Yeah, let's go to what happened and start there and work our way back up.
Do like a tape rewinding sound
Yeah.
right there.
What kind of
No, like
tape
an
are you
actual
rewinding?
tape.
I was thinking more like the imagery, like the weird
Flashback?
flashback noise
Wizard
that
of
you
Oz.
hear.
Like the Bill and Ted. Doodle-doo-doodle-doo.
Yeah.
No, like
I'll see if I can find. Yeah, I'll
and
do
then
that.
a play button.
I'm not going to edit any of this part out, but just put a random tape deck noise just in the middle of the podcast.
Okay, Becky.
Sponsored by Blockbuster. I think we can say that since they're defunct. I don't think it
I
matters.
think there's one store left.
In Alaska.
It closed.
It did.
It did?
No.
Yeah, the last Alaskan store closed.
Oh.
Please be kind and rewind.
Yeah. I still have tapes.
And how does that rewind go, Becky? That tape's broken.
That tape broke.
That's a bad VCR.
Hey guys, this is Becky here, editing the podcast and realizing I can't find a recording of any sort of cassette tape rewind that I could use that was legal and free. So here's the sound of a wind chime in order to do a flashback.
Okay, so let's get into who Charles Manson was before he went to San Francisco. Charles Manson, born November 12th, 1934. He's born in Ohio. Middle America. Story is he was born to a prostitute. I don't know how. I don't think his mom was actually like a full-time hooker. She got arrested for like thievery and robbing and stuff. I think she was just poor and kind of trashy.
Fair.
It's just that's kind of what his life was.
Yeah, he was illiterate.
Yeah, he was not super bright as a kid. He was not. He grew up in really bad surroundings. He was arrested at 13. He robbed a grocery store. They charged him with armed robbery. He didn't hurt anybody. Nobody got shot. Nobody got stabbed. But he got charged because he was 13 robbing a store. You just can't do that. Like, that's not what 13-year-olds are supposed to do.
Yeah.
And this was also, he was born in 34, so this would have been 47, 48. Like, this is the 1940s. Yeah. They're going to put you in jail. They put you in jail for almost anything.
Yeah.
Especially when you actually commit a crime. Arrested at 13, did his time, I guess, and at that point, there's not a lot of record of it. Probably juvie or whatever.
I don't think juvie existed
But
back
like
then.
men's
Yeah, it was like a
school
men's,
or
like,
whatever
yeah.
they call it.
It was almost like it's almost like a group home, but more so restricted to kids and older adults who have committed crimes.
Yeah, like more like an alternative school for teenagers.
Yeah, they didn't really know what to do with kids who committed crime back then.
Yeah, it wasn't a thing.
Yeah, it just didn't happen, allegedly.
Yeah. So, he did that for a few years. 1955, he gets married and has a son, Charles Manson Jr. He's married to this lady for 3 years. Her name is Rosaline Willis. I can't find much on her. I don't know who she was, what she was. She divorced him in 58, so after 3 years, after their son was born, when he was arrested for car theft. Mm-hmm. So we have this pattern that's emerging of him just stealing. Like, he's kind of a thief.
Yeah, if you look at his track record, and there are a lot of really good historical references to what it was. I can't remember the word what I'm trying to say. He really never showed any other than the armed robbery, which really
Even then, no one got hurt.
Yeah,
He just showed us a give me the money.
It was just more petty crime and petty criminal stuff. Theft, stealing cars, hawking cars a lot. It was just stuff like that.
Stealing to get money, which is what happens sometimes. Like, some people just, that's how they go about
And when
life.
you're raised in that kind of circumstance,
he doesn't know any better.
He doesn't know any better. Yeah. Not that I'm sympathetic to Charles Manson. I'm just saying before he murdered people, this is how it was.
So you look at his wife. He married in 55, had a son, divorced 58 after he got arrested. He got married again in 59 to Leona Stevens, has a second son. So it really seems like he's trying to have a family. Mm-hmm. Like, he doesn't seem like he wants to be the loner. I don't I just don't care. I'm going to steal and rob and get ahead in life. It really seems like he's trying to be the guy who has a family. He wants probably what he didn't have when he was a kid. It's more of a stable life is what it kind of is looking like. He's had 2 kids, 2 wives in a really short amount of time. Like he's been married twice in 4 years in the 50s. I'm not sure that happened too terribly often.
No, I'd imagine not.
So, and I would be willing to bet the grounds for divorce was the first one was him being arrested. And they were like, yeah, you don't have to be married to him anymore. He's a bad person. So he gets married to the second marriage, Leona Stevens, has a second son, also named Charles. So he gets arrested in 59 for forging treasury checks and trying to cash them. Again, it's just theft. He's just trying to steal money. And that's all of his crimes up until here are him just stealing cash. And that's robbing the grocery store, taking the cars and hawking them, forging checks. He's not good at it because he keeps getting arrested for doing it, but he keeps doing it. So whatever. So at this point, it's 59-60. They arrest him again. He gets a 10-year suspended sentence. Doesn't have to go to jail for this. They actually have to extradite him from Mexico to go in front of the judge to get the 10-year sentence because he's run off to Mexico. He comes back, gets extradited by the Mexicans up to, he goes to L.A. 1967, during his 10-year suspended sentence, he just moves to San Francisco, just takes off. Which is, I don't know how much you know about being on probation. You're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
That's a big no-no.
And not only did he just take off, he told them he was going. I'm going, you can't stop me.
Well, he told them he was going because his PO told him to do it.
Yeah.
His PO, whose name is actual Roger Smith, it's middle America, man.
That's funny.
Super strong American name. Roger Smith's his PO. Roger Smith tells Manson that he needs to go to San Francisco because he really thinks the free love scene would be good for him. He thinks it would help him find peace and calm and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter what Roger Smith says. That's still illegal.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just up and leave.
Roger Smith kind of is shady.
Yes.
Really shady.
But this is this is federal. This is his federal PO. They don't extradite you for, like, petty crimes. Like,
And it's interesting that Roger Smith is still a PhD student in criminology.
yes.
And keep in mind when Chris is talking about this guy started with multiple parolees, ended with just Manson.
Yeah. Specifically,
Kind of
only
like
Manson.
a handler.
Yeah.
He was the godfather of legal guardian of Manson's kid.
He was a legal guardian of one of the followers. The girls had a kid that was supposedly Manson's. It's the one they're not so sure about. They get arrested a couple years after they've moved to San Francisco, and technically Roger Smith is not his PO anymore.
No.
He still goes up there and tells them, hey, these are good girls, don't arrest them.
Yeah, it keeps him out of prison all the jail. And he tried to help Manson go to Mexico.
Again, the second time.
What?
The girls, the family, we're going to refer to them as family because that's what everybody refers to them as. The girls, and they go up to, I think it's Bakersfield. They get arrested because they are giving acid to some kids and trying to lure them into the family. Like, and that's just kind of their...
Hey, here's some drugs. Come on, kids.
Well, if you look, it's kind of the whole, we're going to have LSD parties. Do you want to come hang out scenario that
Orgies and LSD.
the CIA has been using
yeah.
since the 50s. Like,
Yeah.
it's the same exact thing. They're just doing it not... I don't think these girls know they're associated with what they're associated with. They're just doing what they've been told. One of the boys that they give the LSD to is 15. He is a sheriff's son, freaks the fuck out, imagines his legs are snakes, panics, calls his dad. Dad shows up to arrest the girls. Roger Smith shows up, says, they're pretty good girls. You shouldn't arrest them. I'm going to take, while this whole thing is going on, he took and became the caretaker for the son of one of the girls that were up there. And just they let him leave. No arrests, no trial.
No, isn't this one of the arrests where one of the girls was the one who ended up writing pig in Sharon Tate's blood, and he was like, "Oh, she's really a good girl."
It's one of those girls that supposedly.
And then after the fact, he's like, "She's a really hard, horrible woman."
Yeah.
Oh, that's not what you said.
3 years ago.
Yeah.
Like 2 years ago. It's not even 3 years ago. 2 years ago, when you went out of your way to go up there with your wife and tell the judge how good these girls were.
Yeah.
And to let them go, which the judge did. Which I still don't understand that part of it, because if you drug the sheriff's son and they know you did it and have you dead to rights, how do they be like, it's okay, just go home?
That doesn't seem girls.
That doesn't seem like a thing that I don't care who your PO is.
Yeah.
You're probably going to jail.
Yeah.
Like I can't imagine a scenario where you get out of that where it's not somebody higher than the judge that comes in and says, no, we're not arresting them. That's the only way I can imagine that going. Unless judges are people, but I don't, even now, I don't see them making those kind of mistakes.
Especially looking at the history of arrest, you would think the judge would be like, or the sheriff would be like, hey, this is
They're
my
going to jail.
kid.
Yeah. They gave him LSD and freaked him out. They're going to jail. And they
he's
were doing
15.
this. Yeah. And they were doing it. Apparently, there were 4 or 5 other young men that they had done this to. He just happened to be one of them.
You're thinking of Susan Atkins, who wrote Pig in the Blood.
3 months after moving to San Francisco, he gets arrested for interfering with a police officer. Basically, one of the girls is doing something, and a cop's trying to arrest her, and Manson goes over there, and he doesn't fight him, but he gets in his way and tries to get where she can get away. Manson gets arrested for interfering with a police officer. His PO, Mr. Roger Smith, goes in front of the judge, recommends a 3-day suspended sentence. The judge says, sure. For, again, should have been arrested. Again, it's still a violation of probation, of felony probation.
Yeah.
He should have been thrown in jail again.
He should have been revoked.
Yes.
I mean, jaywalking would get you thrown back in jail. And he's throwing hands with the policeman.
I mean,
Yes.
even if you are, in modern times, if you're on felony probation and you get another felony, that if he's on a 10-year suspended sentence, you can revoke him for the entire amount of time that he was on probation just for that reason. So a 3-day suspended sentence, a little sus.
So we have Roger Smith being Manson's PO. We have Roger Smith telling Manson to leave LA and move to San Francisco because it would be good for him. Manson leaves and moves to San Francisco in April of 1967. In June of 1967, Roger Smith is running amphetamine trials at the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic. I don't know what a PO is doing running amphetamine trials. I have no idea, but that is what he's doing, especially if he's getting his degree in criminology, technically still at this point. I don't know. That part confuses me. I don't understand, A1, who's giving him the amphetamines, because he's not making them. He's not a chemist. So someone is supplying him drugs and letting him run clinical trials on people with, you say amphetamines, everybody thinks meth, but it's also speed and barbiturates. It's all kinds of stuff, but whatever.
Yeah.
He's giving people drugs and running trials.
And part of the trial was to make sure it got to the street gangs to see what impact it would have there.
Yeah, to see where they would go with it. See if it would make them more violent or more violent towards each other versus more violent towards civilians. Well, again, they're really trying to make the hippies and the Black Panthers and all these counterculture movements look really bad to the public.
How suspicious.
Successful.
Yeah, it's 100% going to work, by the way. It always does.
Keep in mind, history repeats itself, and then take a look at 2020.
Yeah, it's really scary out there. Roger Smith, the PO, he's doing the amphetamine trials at the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic. Oddly enough, Jolly West he's a professor at UCLA, and he also has an office at the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic. There are records of Charles Manson going to see Roger Smith daily. They know he went by there, if not every day, at least every other day, to go check in, which is way more than you have to check in with a PO.
Yeah.
It's way more than you have to do anything pretty much ever other than go to work. But he would take the family, the girls, and they would give them penicillin and abortions and all kinds, whatever they needed to stay healthy-ish, as healthy as they could be. We have Manson, his PO, who somehow is above federal law, Jolly West, all in the same building at the same time.
And a David Smith, not related Roger,
He just
running
opened it.
LSD trials.
Yeah, but so David Smith is the guy that opened the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic. Roger Smith just happened to be there. They're not related to each other.
Yeah.
I try to leave him out because it gets kind of confusing with the Smiths and the...
Well, and on the surface...
Mr. Smith.
Well, it's funny because on the surface of the story, all you know is that the Manson girls are going to get treated for STDs.
Sure.
But they're there for hours.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're getting penicillin. They're getting all of this stuff that...
From a clinic running drug trials.
Well, and theoretically, why would they be going to a free medical clinic? They're a bunch of hippies. They're a bunch of homeless people who hitchhike, petty crime, stuff like that. Everything that you wouldn't expect people to give, just freely give. I understand it's a free medical clinic, but to be able to go repeatedly over and over again and do it.
Sure.
Something strange about that.
Daily.
Yeah, exactly.
How often do you need a penicillin shot if you've got
Exactly.
the clap? I assume it's probably just the once, but
Well, and generally you would think that if you're getting it daily, that either you are a whore, and
I take offense to that.
well, but the thing I'm thinking of is like, how many people are you sleeping with that has the clap over and over and over again?
well, that, and even if you're not even gonna have symptoms the next day,
Right?
like there's no way you know, like that, and that's the part that is interesting to me, is that you have MKUltra's lead psychiatrist, doctor, whatever you want to call him, in the same place as what, like Angie said, is probably Manson's handler. Mm-hmm. It's probably his PO thing doesn't matter. He's just there to keep him out of jail and to kind of direct him, because by everything that's here, he directed him to Jolly West. He sent him straight there. He told him to go there.
Yeah. And I'm like...
And he set up shop as his PO in the same place as Jolly West.
Place.
Like, he drug him there.
Yeah, because he was running his own federally funded study, which, by the way, that office was burglarized and only his ARP files were taken.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. But yeah, so that when you said why free, that's why, because it was federally funded, which makes everything offered there suspect.
Well, and I don't picture a
And not
bunch of
federally funded illegal drug research.
Well,
Yes.
and what I'm thinking is, how many hippies would you think would be going daily to a free clinic every time they get the clap? Like, that just doesn't seem
I think
realistic.
I woke up with herpes.
Yeah, I'm going to show up 4 months from now if my dick hurts, and we're going to go get
Yeah.
this fixed. But that's
Yeah.
it.
There's something weird growing on it. Maybe I need to go get it checked, but I can't imagine that they're going... This
Daily.
is something they would want to do daily.
Well,
yeah.
even if it's not daily the whole time, imagine even if it's 3 times a week.
It's still
That's
weird.
still a lot.
I don't even like going to my job 5 times a week.
No
most of the
kidding.
time. Yeah,
And they're
so-
paying you to be there.
Exactly. So that's a little strange on in that circumstance.
Well, and David Smith's research with LSD wasn't so much like the psychedelic effects. It was to pump lab rats full to see if he could cause aggressive states.
Which is, I think, MKUltra had already done.
Yeah, I think you got it when...
Well, so Jolly West has his office at the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic. Roger Smith has his barbiturate or amphetamine studies there, and he's also doing his PO work out of there, apparently, with only Manson, which is probably not the case. What's probably going on is, since the Manson family has infinite drugs, and I mean, they just do. They have LSD all the time and no money. They're probably just picking it up from either Jolly West or one of the Smiths.
Yeah.
Is probably just feeding it to them. Manson has times he goes to see Jolly West. They're not sure. Again, the records of this are really hard, so they're going off of word of mouth and what people saw. They know he met with Jolly West a bunch of times. They know he would be in there for an hour or two at a time, and that was really all they knew. No one else is in there with him. None of this is recorded, as far as we know. If Jolly had the recordings, they've probably been destroyed.
Guaranteed.
Whatever records there were, as Angie alluded to, were stolen.
Yeah.
Stolen in air quotes.
How do
Yes.
you, yeah, like,
And thrown into a fucking furnace.
well, how do you justify, like, this guy who's been in almost every situation, like, that has had a huge American impact, like Jack Ruby and all of
Right.
that? Then suddenly you're like, he was also with Charles Manson.
It's not like Charles Manson was well known at this time.
No, he was nobody.
Yeah.
He was some guy from LA that wanted to make music and liked drugs. Cool. This is San Francisco in 67. You know who else is that? Every person
Everybody.
you see.
Yeah.
Every one of them. That's just who they all are. This is that whole mindset is. And again, I wasn't live back there, so I had to go on videos and studies and what people have said. And it just seems like it's that whole wanderlust. I don't want to be tied down. I want to do what I want
Right.
to do. Perfect society mindset that doesn't really exist anywhere, but they just kind of wanted to live it for a little while. Like going backpacking through Europe for a summer. Like, you just don't want responsibility, so you go do that for a while.
Well, even after the whole Charles Manson debacle itself, like, the hippie movement does exist, but it's so disillusioned, and most people are so disillusioned by it that even when you see it in the public, the first thing you alluded to is that transient people who are going to go murder people.
Yeah, gypsies.
Yeah.
In Canada, there's still a really strong hippie movement going. They're called the tree planters because they come and they plant trees.
Sure.
After the lumber industry, and they're dreads. They're hippies. But even still, when they come, lock your doors. They'll steal. They're gonna rape and kill.
well, it's
Meanwhile,
over.
they do nothing but plant trees.
Yeah, once this happens, once the Tate-LaBianca murders happen, there is no going back from that.
No.
mainstream America is going to view these people all in the same light because that's what they do. They put you in a box, and that's the box you're in.
Yeah.
And there's no way around it. It scared everybody for a while, and the trial really weirded people out because they were all acting crazy during the trial, which was on purpose, I believe.
Kind of like Hitler burning babies.
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, like we've got Jolly West meeting with Manson, who, again, it's federal because he forged a check, but it's still just theft. It's still petty crime. I don't know how much he tried to steal. Enough that it was federal. But again, it's still just forgery. It's like if I stole Angie's checkbook and signed her name and went and wrote something.
I think it was more so. I don't think the amount
'Cause it was
mattered.
a
I think it was the
treasury.
treasury
Yeah,
issue.
absolutely.
So-
And that's the thing. It's federal, but it's still
Yeah.
it's whatever. Like it's not like he's out killing people.
Right.
He's not stabbing people. He's not robbing people. He's not hitting them with a baseball bat to take their wallet.
Yeah.
He's still just stealing.
He's
stuff.
not really a violent person.
Yeah, he's still just stealing. Like it's just who he is. He shows up to San Francisco and he's still not violent. He wants to make music, which he's apparently really bad at.
Oh yeah.
He wants to do a bunch of drugs and have, up until this point, just be around and happy. It seems, and again, it seems like it's that actual family setting he's been looking for most of his life, between his wives and the kids, and trying to be, I guess, a family man. Like the old school version of the 2.5 kids and the white picket fence is kind of, I think, was his dream. But I don't think he knew how to get there because he had no roadmap. He was never taught anything towards that. He knew more of the dark criminal side because of his mom. Like, this is what it was.
It was like a relapse almost. Like he
Yeah.
he doesn't know better to do better for himself. And in fairness to all of that, on the flip side, it's not like, I don't think drugs are probably helping your situation either. And, you know, the whole theory, part of the theory that the reason why the Tate-LaBianca murders happened is because he was a bad musician. And Terry Melcher was just like, hey, you suck. You know, we're going to decline to work with you.
So that part doesn't even make sense, and we'll get to that too.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I told Becky. That I don't believe that.
They're just using him as who he is to perpetuate that.
Sorta. Jolly West on site. He also has a crash pad, what he calls a hippie crash pad, around the corner from the the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic. Basically, what he's done is taken 6 undergrads, told them to grow their hair long and dress like hippies. They have decked out this apartment to look like a hippie crash pad. And whenever the hippies come, and it's free, they just let them come in there and they give them LSD.
Kind of like the Midnight Climax thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like Operation Midnight Climax, only there's no hookers, supposedly. They're
Yeah.
just letting them come
It's
hang
just
out.
drug dealers.
Yeah, not even drug dealers. Here's a bunch of LSD. You want to come sleep here? Fine, we don't care.
And then they watch them and report back.
And the grad students don't even understand what they're doing. They have no idea why they're there. They're encouraged to take LSD to see how they react to them being in charge of the hippies. It's a whole thing where even they're like, we don't know. We don't understand any of this. Because it's just who Jolly West is. He wants to test on basically an unwitting public to see what happens when I think it's kind of both. I think he wants to know that he can control their mind, and to see what happens when he doesn't, what they do on their own. Mm-hmm. See if there's maybe anything he's missing, any other weird abilities. Because, I mean, they were still trying by this point, they probably had started the telepathy, MK Search, and MK Often. Probably had already, they may not have been called this, because the MK is the Technical Services designation, and even before MKUltra, it was called Project Bluebird and then Project Artichoke. So, again, unless we have the records, there's no way to tell what they call these things. And even if we knew, there may not be any actual information. This MK Naomi, we know it exists. That's kind of all we know. That's where it ends.
I'm sorry. The idea of something being called Project Artichoke is both hilarious and malevolent at the same time. Like,
Agreed.
Project Artichoke.
I would be willing to bet they just picked words.
Oh, yeah. But it's so
Well,
like...
because artichoke, when you think about the shape of an artichoke, it's layered. And if you peel it, keep peeling it back, and then you get to the artichoke heart, I think that's where the name came from. Peel back these layers to get to the heart of something.
See, I was thinking artichoke you out. But you know what?
Childish Gambino.
Yeah, exactly.
MK Onion, I guess, at this point.
MK Shrek.
So Jolly West is doing his whatever experiments. We know he's doing them there. We know he's doing them while Charles Manson is... There's no proof that he did anything to Charles Manson. However, we know he was doing these experiments, and we know he was meeting with Manson. I don't think it's that big of a leap, but it's one we kind of have to make because nothing else makes sense. So this is all June of '67 when this starts. Sometime in 1968, no one's there's no start date. The CIA starts Operation Chaos. Operation Chaos is what we've been talking about, where they want to sow discontent with the American public about the counterculture movement. Their idea is that if they make hippies and Black Panthers and U.S. Slave and all these other splinter counterculture movements unpalatable and unappeasing to the youth of America, it'll die. The whole thing will die out, which is their exact goal. I mean, that's what the stated goal of that operation was. It's a CIA operation. There's no link to or from Jolly West or Sidney Gottlieb to any work directly with Chaos. However, if it's going on in San Francisco and they have the lead MKUltra psychiatrist there, he's going to be involved with it somehow. Mm-hmm. There's no way he's not.
Yeah.
And especially if this is their goal, to turn, for lack of a better word, to turn hippies into murderers. Cool.
Well, you got to switch the narrative over somehow. You can't, I mean, if your whole thing is free love, how do you get rid of that idea?
Well, if it's peace and drugs and free love and expanding your mind, and there is no real violence, you have to create the violence.
You have to create it, exactly.
And he's the person that can create it, because I'm pretty sure he did it with Jack Ruby and Mr. Jimmy Shaver. Pretty sure he managed to get them both very violent, and they were both Jimmy Shaver was non-violent. Jack Ruby was just not violent, but not non-violent. I think he was he didn't care.
And it would be naive to think that these projects like this would not have some interwoven
overlap
to it in the first place. So to say that they're just mutually exclusive is probably naive anyway. So they're thinking, okay, we've seen this with these experiments. We want to do this. How do we connect these two and see what happens?
Manson meets Wilson from the Beach Boys through Mr. Melcher, who's a record producer. Melcher is Doris Day's son. Melcher goes over to, he lives at this point, he's living where Roman Polanski and Sharon Tate.
Cielo Drive.
Yeah, the Cielo Drive house. But that's his house right now. So Manson has been there. Melcher turns him down, just says his sound is not, he probably is way nicer than I would be. He just tells him it's not what they're looking for.
Well, and I think for Manson's purview, my understanding from that narrative is that Terry Melcher had recorded a couple of songs with Manson. What ends up happening is that it's just not the sound they want. They're not really feeling it. He's not a very talented guy. But he was also talking about doing a documentary about Manson's music, and then that kind of drops out too. So there is that narrative that was part of the reason why he was so mad about what happened with Terry Melcher, that Cielo Drive murder occurred. But it doesn't make a lot of sense based on the timeline.
Well, so Melcher sells that house and moves across town. Mm-hmm. He moves over to the Hollywood Hills,
like in days.
Yeah, like
it happens like that in January.
Well, he moves, but Manson goes to his new house.
Exactly.
He knows where if he's mad at Melcher,
lives.
He knows where he lives.
Yeah.
He supposedly didn't know that Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski lived there. I mean, it's just whoever bought that house is the story.
Which is strange because at the same time of this happening, there were eyewitnesses, gardeners, people who were at the house who said that Charles Manson came to the house where Sharon Tate was staying. Sharon Tate and Charles Manson interacted with each other. He knows that's not Candace Bergden and Terry Melcher. Yep. So he knows that those people don't live there anymore.
Yeah, well, he's also been to Melcher's new home.
Exactly.
It's not like it's a surprise. Like, he's been on the property.
It's like, there's your two indications that he's definitely not there.
Yeah. Well, so the story is with Manson conversing with Sharon Tate. Supposedly he was selling acid over there to Tate and Roman Polanski, and then there's his name's evading me, but he was a famous hairdresser that was also friends with.
I can't think.
He was apparently in love with Sharon Tate, and they had been dating, and then she broke up with him to date Roman Polanski.
I can't remember his name,
but he was still friends.
Was he
still
from India or somewhere?
I think he was Italian, maybe. I don't remember. He's just a guy that's in the story.
Yeah, that was really unfortunate for him because Sharon Tate and him were together prior to her meeting Roman Polanski. If you know anything about the relationship between the two of them, they did not have a good relationship.
No, Roman Polanski is a huge piece of shit and a monster of a human being.
Yeah.
There's a reason his videos are not allowed in the U.S. anymore.
Yeah.
He's not to set foot in this country again, and the U.S. don't do that too much.
I mean, because a lot of people think after Sharon Tate's murder that Roman Polanski lost his shit. That's not the case. They had
he was always a piece of shit.
He was abusive toward her. So this poor woman, she just really got it from both ends.
She was just too naive.
She was just.
I think she wanted to be attached to what Roman Polanski was supposed to be, the Hollywood elite, the genius filmographer. And again, with the hairdresser dude that loved her still hanging around, I'm not sure their relationship ended.
No.
I think she just wanted to be a part of that Roman Polanski's lifestyle and scene.
Well, and I think for her, probably bedazzled by the Hollywood life.
Hollywood lights.
Yeah, and then you meet somebody like Roman Polanski who's famous, who sweeps you off your feet. For her, that probably was like her dream come true, if anything.
Yes.
So,
I mean, I understand where she's at.
yeah.
Later, after the Sharon Tate gets murdered and everybody in the house, the cops come in and they find a video upstairs that Roman Polanski has shot. Video recorders are very expensive at this point, but Roman Polanski has one. They take the video as evidence, view it, and put it back. During the court trace, Bugliosi says that the video was a home recording of Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski having sex. Later on, what Bugliosi eventually admits to Tom O'Neill later is that the video is not them having sex. It's Roman Polanski filming two guys having sex with her against her will. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's the kind of dude Roman Polanski was. So, and it's weird because 3 days or 3 weeks before the murder, Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski are in Europe. Mm-hmm. And she gets sent back to have her baby. And I think it's 3 days before the murder, and then the murder happens.
I'm thinking it was
fairly close in timeline of what was going on, yeah.
Like,
it looks really
They
weird.
said it was because she needed to be on bed rest, but you are flying her from Europe back to the United
in the
States.
60s.
And even now, women aren't supposed to fly in their last trimester.
Yeah.
But yeah, they flew her back. And I can't find any tie-ins with Roman Polanski knowing anything about this, one way or the other. Maybe it was just bad luck. It's that coincidences happen and it sucks. But the Manson family, the girls, Tex Watson, show up, kill Sharon Tate, write pig on the wall, leave. This is 1969. The next day, the cops find everything. Across town, the LaBiancas are murdered. LaBiancas they're not upscale. They're pretty middle America. LaBianca's family, the father, his family owns some grocery stores. He takes his family. He embezzles a bunch of money. $250,000, I think, is the number. Yeah, he embezzles.
That's a lot back then.
It's a lot now.
It's a lot back then.
But he gets caught embezzling, and the family, the night before the murder, they're supposed to have a sit-down meeting because they're telling him they're cutting him off. You're not part of the business anymore. We're done with this. You can't keep stealing money, so they're just going to cut him completely off. And he knows what's going on, so instead of going to the meeting, he takes his family water skiing, and they go water skiing. The next day, the family's irate. The next day, he goes home. They get murdered, supposedly by Manson and them again.
Mm-hmm. And like, really, if you don't know all about these murders at this point, there are a million podcasts. There's a million stories about it. You don't really need to. This is all about what happened.
Yeah,
that could have been part of it. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, we don't have to get into the grisly details. Yeah. We're just kind of going the broad strokes of the actual murders because again, there are videos, there are podcasts, there are books. Most of this has been explored. I mean, beat to death. Yeah. The problem is most of it has been lies.
Yeah, especially. I talked to Angie about this earlier today, and it didn't. I didn't realize that Bugliosi there had been so much that had been left out and had been strong-armed during the trial.
Maybe
everything like that.
5% of it was the actual truth of it.
Absolutely.
And I don't think
he was key to suppressing
a lot
perjuring.
Of it.
And I don't think a lot of people realize that. You only hear the narrative that has been brought up by the Helter Skelter novel.
So he can't answer for it.
Exactly. So everybody sort of knows the basic narrative of it. Although I think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that was the better story in my opinion.
I loved that movie, and you just really kind of wish that's what happened. I like Quentin Tarantino. I mean, of course, it's fiction. It's just as fictional as
it's Once Upon a Time, but it's so sad.
Well, I like that movie a lot. I mostly like watching Brad Pitt slam Bruce Lee into a car. You're like, oh, interesting.
Amazing.
We've got the Tate murders. We've got LaBianca murders. The family leaves San Francisco and they go up to the ranch, the Spawn Ranch at this point. Mm-hmm. They're hiding out supposedly at the Spawn Ranch
for 4 months.
Yeah, for a while.
Well, Chris, let's before we move there was a guy that is referenced, and even the guy's family's like, we think he was a spy with the CIA. What was it? Was his last name Watson?
Yes.
Whitson.
Whitson.
And Whitson had called up a friend of Sharon Tate's and was like, hey, 9 hours before they were discovered dead, and said, hey, your friends are murdered. Let's go. And Whitson lied on stand because he said Bugliosi strong-armed and threatened him with deportation to say a narrative that they wanted to present. But he said the reality is he went with Whitson and they staged the bodies. They went in after the fact. So what's the CIA there? And he had been with Manson.
So there are actually pictures of the CIA operative you're talking about. This gentleman he was married with a daughter, and he divorced his wife and sent them to Europe because he said, if they get to me, it'll be through you guys, so I can't have any connection.
Right.
So he literally, his adult daughter looked him up after he retired from the CIA in her 30s because she didn't know him since the time she was like 3, because he was scared that she would be murdered because if he was got, that's how they get to him.
Yeah.
Because he said something was off with the whole thing. So I think he was like a CIA counter to itself. I'm not really sure. But this story, when you think, oh, this is all just linking connections that aren't really there. Well, there's another string that's pulled in connected to this CIA.
Yeah, that dude, he was very staunch. He's exactly what you'd imagine like the upstanding Republican government worker would have been back then. He was apparently not a great guy. He was very racist.
Shock.
I mean, it just is what it is. Like, he was. However, he didn't lie about that kind of stuff. He just was who he was. He did his job. And even with his wife and daughter, like I said, he divorced his wife to make her leave the country. Yeah. So that she wouldn't be hurt. So he was into some whatever deep shit people get into in the CIA as operatives or counter operatives or counter operatives or whatever in God's name his title would have been. But his story where he went in, because he has actually passed away too since then, that they went in and moved the bodies. It wasn't that they were already dead when they got there, but they were looking for something in there as well. And I don't even think he actually knew what they were looking for, but they went in there and moved the bodies. His story is hard to prove, so I typically kind of leave it out. It's a weird tightrope to walk without stepping into the conspiracy theory side of it.
Because, Angie's knee deep in conspiracy.
I love the conspiracy theory aspect of it, but I don't.
But that's why I like Chris presenting it, because his is all.
I try to stick to what
facts.
we actually know.
Yeah.
Right.
I love the conspiracy aspect of it more than anything.
Because I would love to go down the celebrity Hollywood conspiracy theory on this, but you can't prove that.
Yeah, it's all just hearsay. I don't want to
be sued for slander.
Yep.
So, yeah.
But we have the murders. We have the family out at the ranch. They leave the Spawn Ranch and go to another ranch where they're actually eventually caught. No one's even exactly sure why they leave in the first place, because they kill the Tates. Nothing happens.
Right. They're even arrested during the 4 months, like 4 months span of time, and they keep getting let go. It's like, if they are number one primo suspects or however that happens, you know where they are. You're not having a problem finding them. They're released. They're never really arrested and put in jail.
Being arrested.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, but Terry Melcher goes to visit them at the Spawn Ranch. Right. No less than 3 times. They know at least 3 times.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So if their plan was to, if Manson's plan was to kill everybody in that house to send fear into Melcher, why would Melcher drive out of his way to go visit him?
And he even visited
at which
him,
point they could have even killed him then.
And even after,
more than once.
And even subsequent to the trial and him being locked up for the murders, Melcher does visit him in jail.
Absolutely.
So why? I mean, I guess at that point you bring up that it wasn't Melcher, it was this idea of the race war, which I mean, we'll get into all of that, but go ahead.
That's the Helter Skelter aspect.
Yeah, exactly.
Also not.
It's also not
news.
Exactly.
Fake news.
So that's why like these narratives are so interesting, because we've only been led to believe
the facts don't support that narrative.
He carved a swastika in his forehead. It only makes sense that he's an Aryan guy trying to like start a race war.
Well, and here's the thing: we were fed this narrative that it is drug-addled hippies that murdered to start a race war.
Right.
Which is, it literally is, it's like the panties on Jimmy Shaver's rearview mirror. Mm-hmm. How much more evidence do you need? We'll just keep spoon feeding it to you till there is no way to doubt it.
Which is crazy, because the counterculture for the hippies was free love, peace, all of that stuff. So you're a hippie who goes out and murders these people to start a race war?
But it's exactly what Operation Chaos wanted. That's their stated goal.
It's like you can't be a hippie and be that.
Gotta
Yeah.
woke.
So
Get
That doesn't
woke.
work.
yeah.
Stay woke. Go ahead. Sorry.
Melcher goes and visits him a couple times, and nothing happens. Like, he just goes, hangs out for a couple hours, then leaves. Again, I don't know if he's going there. No one's really sure what he's doing there. I'm again going to assume he's picking up acid.
Yeah.
I think he's
Yeah.
getting a bunch of drugs because that's the one thing they never have a problem getting a hold of is drugs. They never have money. They never have jobs, but they always have LSD. The family leaves Spawn Ranch. They go to another ranch where they're eventually caught and arrested. They're brought to trial. They are acting it's the biggest trial in American history at this point. It is huge. It's literally a Hollywood murder. They've killed elites. They are the hippies and this is during Vietnam when there's a very, very hard clash between the left and the right. It's the spitting on the soldiers coming back versus the putting the flowers in the barrels of soldiers' guns kind of aspect. It's really, really strange time in America. Welcome back to it.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, will conclude the first part of our 2-part series on MKUltra and Charles Manson. Make sure to check out the final part next week where we conclude our series on MKUltra and make our way into the spooky season and all of the cool stuff that'll happen there. You can check us out at Facebook at The Free Rotation Podcast. You can check us out on Twitter at The Free Rotation. We are also on YouTube at The Free Rotation Podcast, and we stream on Twitch at The Free Rotation. You can check us out on Weeby Geeks. We are affiliates of that podcast network. So there's some great podcasts over there, so check them out. And you can check out our backlog at TheFreeRotation.com. We are on every podcast app you can think of. Make sure to check us out on Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Play. Anything you can think of, we're probably on it, Spotify. And yeah, we'll see you next week. Have a great night. Bye.
Free